Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the GlobalMindED panel discussion on employment and leadership opportunities for LGBTQIA+. My name is Kevin Cassidy. I'm the director of the International Labour Organization's Office for the United States and Canada. It's my honor to introduce our moderator for today. Gurchaten is the director of programs for the ILGA world. Gurchaten is a widely respected LGBTI change maker and community leader. Before their time at ILGA World, Gurchaten was a non-discrimination program officer at the International Labour Organization Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work branch, where they built their expertise and knowledge on promoting social justice through decent and inclusive work for all, in particular to enhance LGBTQI+ rights at work and economic inclusion. They were also the president of UN Globe, the group representing LGBTIQ personnel in the United Nations system. Gurchaten has been listed as an outstanding LGBT role model from 2018 to 2021. They are also an honoree of the Out and Equals 2021 Global LGBTQ Corporate Advocate Audi Award, and the winner of the British LGBT Award for Exceptional Inclusion 2021, and the Pink News Award for 2002 for Community Role Model. Also a good friend of mine from the ILO, so very happy to be here, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you for that lovely introduction and your kind words. Hi, everyone. My name is Gurchaten, like Kevin said, pronounced like Manhattan. Be moderating this fantastic panel today. So what I want to talk to you about before we go into the next part is I work for ILGA World, which is the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Association. We are a membership-based organization. We are the largest global federation of 1,800 organizations. We're made up from 6 regions. Our tagline is that we are queer democracy in action. The tagline I use is that we are the LGBTI version of the UN. We build and bring our communities together to build consensus and advocate our positionality in front of the world, whether it's in the regional level or at the global level. Now, in terms of global trends, it's no surprise that whilst advances are made around the world, we are seeing worrying trends that are of concern. Worrying trends which are also witnessed here in the USA. Whilst we know that in the past couple of years, we have the number of countries or UN member states have reduced decriminalization from 69 to 63. We see a worrying trend here as well around the world where more and more backlashes, the pendulum is swinging the other way. We have now recently seen the anti-homosexuality law in Uganda, which has punishable death for aggravated homosexuality, which is a worrying trend for the region. But let's not forget, this is not just an issue in Africa. This is not just an issue in Asia. But across Europe, we are seeing a trend of anti-rights, anti-democracy, which is twinned with an anti-gender backlash as well. And sadly, the US is no exception to that. In 2023 alone, 400 anti-LGBTI bills have been introduced in the United States, which preventing gender-affirming care for gender diverse and trans youth, to regarding restrooms, public facilities, laws preventing them from engaging in national or team-based sports, and to laws where we say, do not say gay, to laws which are also banning schools from actually having inclusive curriculum. And this all has a negative impact on LGBTI communities. And we don't have to go far to have seen the impact itself took place here in Colorado, sadly, last year after the GlobalMindED conference, where there was a shooting, where 5 members of our communities tragically lost their lives. So I would like to ask you to all stand for a moment of silence to respect the victims of that shooting. Thank you. Thank you. And indeed, if we can certainly say that in such cases, laws, and hate speech can definitely kill, sadly, and we don't have to look far for that. So our thoughts and condolences to the families of the bereaved and to our communities and beyond our communities as well, because this is not just, we don't just live in silos as well. So without further ado, I think let's jump straight into the conversation about how all of this is actually impacting LGBTIQ plus people in employment and labor rights as well. So I've got an amazing panel here today with me. I have Alicia Mousseau, Tasha, Fridia, Bryan, Klipsch, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and Brad Barfield. So without further ado, what I would like, my first question to the panel is if you could introduce yourselves and share with us and with the audience as well who you are, what has brought you to this point, what is your organization and what does it do? Tasha, can we start with you, please?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Ashita Shitzak Nati, Get East, Hisari, Pajuta Changlish, Gawin Ditsini. My Lakota name is Sacred Medicine Circle Woman, but as he said, my name is Tasha Fridia. I'm the National Director of Tribal Programs for Friends of the Children. We're a youth mentoring organization where we start with youth ages 4 to 6 and pair them with a paid professional mentor that stays alongside them through high school, so 12 years plus no matter what. So very exciting work there. I lead our efforts in growing this model into Indian country, and so very honored to be a part of this panel. I will say as a caveat, I do a lot of other things, a lot of policy, lobbying, advising for tribal organizations and tribes throughout the United States, so some of my answers may cross over into that. And then next I'll hand this off to
Alicia.
Yes.
Alicia.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alicia Mousseau. I'm the Vice President for the Oglala Sioux tribe. For those of you who are not familiar with tribal nations in the United States, there are over 560 federally recognized tribes. Those are the first people of this nation, the people here before colonizers came over in first contact. So we are one of those tribes, and we are based in our current jurisdiction is in the southwest corner of South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and our treaty territory actually spans Nebraska, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Minnesota, parts of Colorado. So treaty territory over the time has reduced down to that southwest corner, which is we have about 3 million acres, so we're a large land-based tribe. We also have 51,000 members, tribal members, and what we do is we govern our jurisdiction and the folks within our jurisdiction. And so I'm really excited to be on this panel and talk about what we've been doing in our community to take care of our people. So thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Bryan?
Hey everybody, my name is Bryan Klipsch. You were close.
Okay.
Klipsch. And I am the CEO of Flourish. We are a mental wellness app that is for the queer community. And I remember when I came across this job opportunity, it was shocking and saddening that there had not been a mental health app designed for the queer community at this point in time. And coming from New York, I think it's important to recognize that this app is designed for folks that don't have community in their backyard. They don't have access to resources that allow them to work on mental wellness and to grow and to thrive and to have access to the resources that should be equitable for everyone. So I'm very excited to be here on this panel. I've been in the tech for-profit space for a really long time, and I've been looking for a way to have a more hands-on impact for the queer community. So this opportunity I'm humbled by. I'm excited to be here to chat with all of you, and I will pass it over to Brad.
Thank you, Bryan. Brad, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Brad Barfield. I use he, him pronouns. I am Vice President at Envision, which is a nonprofit based in Denver. We do all of our work across the state of Colorado and beyond. We are focused on reducing mental health disparities for the queer community, and we do that through a variety of different ways. We do legislative and policy advocacy. We also train mental health professionals to deliver queer-affirming care as a part of that, those one-on-one and one-to-group services. And we have community programs all throughout the community as well, which are free and free or low cost, including a new program for trusted adults who are trying to find new ways to create affirming environments for queer youth in their homes, schools, and beyond.
Thank you very much. And give it up for our lovely panelists today. Thank you. So, let's stay with you, Brad. Can you tell us a bit more about how your organization is working with LGBTI communities? You've specifically touched upon working on mental health and policy and on advocacy as well, and lobbying. If you can tell us a bit more about how you're doing that, how you're actually engaging with those communities as well, so not to ensure it's a top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach. And from your work, in particular, on the outset, we've talked about 400 bills being introduced in 2023 alone, 200 of which have been enforced. So what are the challenges that LGBTIQ plus people here in Denver are facing, or what have you seen?
Sure, yeah. Thank you for that question. So one of the things that we have always done at Envision U is our programs and the way that we do our work is community informed and community co-created. So we don't do anything without paid advisory groups that we bring in to help inform our work, and again have a co-created model so that the solutions that we are thinking about, one, are around problems that the community actually believes they have. And then we brainstorm what those solutions could actually look like in a way that connects with the community. So a large portion of our staff is queer, but we do not represent everyone in the LGBTQ plus community by any stretch of the imagination. We never will. And even if we did, it's really important that we are in constant dialogue with the community to help understand how the landscape is shifting and what folks actually need and how they can be best supported and how we can play a role in that. I think one of the things that we're seeing, so many things that we're seeing, I think that 400 number actually might be closer like to 500 or 600 just because there's like constant reintroductions of things sort of across our country. And it's been very disheartening, obviously. What we are seeing here in Colorado is that there's a lot of talk about Colorado being a safe space because we have an administration that is at a state level that is not directly putting these pieces of legislation out. But Colorado, like every other state, is diverse. And we are blue by a couple of percentage points, and what happens in Colorado does not only happen at a state level. So across the state, and we're seeing this across the country as well, what it might mean to exist as a queer youth, maybe a Latina trans woman in Mesa County, might feel exactly the same way as if they were in Alabama or Florida. So I think we really have to think about what's happening at the local level and find ways to help people where they are live their true, best, authentic lives, which there are a lot of barriers to doing that.
Thank you, Bryan. I like what you said there as well. I think a lot of it resonates with the work that we do at ILGA. Is the first principle is do no harm. Second one is do no harm. Third one is do no harm. And it's important to bring those local voices as well. Tasha, I may turn to you for the next part. If you could tell us more about how your organization is working with, how in your own communities you're working with LGBTIQ plus people, and in particular how LGBTIQ plus youth, LGBTIQ plus communities, and especially in indigenous, tribal, native communities, are facing these challenges as well from an intersectional perspective. Thank you.
Sure. So I'll start with my work at Friends of the Children. I really love working there. It is one of the best organizations that I've ever worked for, very intentional in everything that we do. And as I mentioned, we are mentoring youth for almost half of their life, right? Or the first quarter of their life. And one thing that we do is we do pair youth with individuals that have a shared life experience. We gender match, and that's not, that's based on the gender that they associate with. And so I really appreciate that. A lot of organizations, and we've lost funders at local chapters, but we are relentless in our pursuit of empowering youth to live as their whole selves and to create a greater future for them. And so I really appreciate that. So we are actively hiring mentors at that level that represent the young people that we will be interacting with. And then we have a two-gen approach, so also wrapping around their families in that way as well to support them, and the parents to support their LGBTQIA youth. And then at the national level, because we are a national organization with over 30 chapters in our network, at the national organization, we have done a really good job in representation, but it doesn't just stop there. I think, we can hire at any level in an organization and say, look, we've checked the box. But at Friends of the Children, it really goes beyond that. They are also very intentional about the benefits that we offer, covering gender-affirming care, looking at ways to increase coverage for the special reproductive challenges that we may face in the LGBTQ community. And so I really appreciate all of those, what may seem small, but cumulatively make for a great workspace. So, we do a lot of those kinds of things. As far as, within Indian country, I was sharing with the panel as we were preparing, I think it's important for us to share the lens in which we see our two-spirit relatives, and I'll refer to it in that way. Traditionally, two-spirit people held really important roles in our communities as healers, as artisans. They took on caregiver roles when children may have lost their parents. And so those are the ways in which we see our relatives and really uplift them as very special people, and we're reclaiming that in our communities. I know Vice President Mousseau, who in full disclosure is my fiance, we have done some really great work out of her office, and I know that she'll share that further. But youth in Indian country are learning those traditional understandings and feeling that acceptance in a variety of ways, visibility in our tribal communities. And so we're very also intentional in our work in that way. So I want to put that in a strengths-based perspective. There are many challenges, as we know, but as sovereign tribal nations, from the way that we legislate to how we apply laws within our jurisdictions, have been not only traditionally, but contemporarily very inclusive and uplifting. And so I appreciate that very much, and I think that we can serve as a model for other communities to do the same.
Thank you. Thank you, Tasha. Particularly appreciated the points with right now how in the pushback and the anti-rights movement, let's call it that, the opposition, that we're losing funders. And that puts an extra strain on our communities. We're having not just to deal with this backlash, we're losing funders as well. And that puts an extra capacity constraint on us. That's really interesting. Thanks you for mentioning that.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I know the other thing that we talked about, the most important role that I play in all of the work that I do and the things that happen in my life is that of a mother. And so we get the great opportunity to have my youngest daughter, who identifies as a lesbian, in our home. And so we're modeling every day for her what it looks like to break barriers, to face challenges head on, like our Buffalo relatives. And so, we have a great great rapport with her. We have dinner and we talk about the tea of the day and what that looks like for her, and really help counsel her on an individual level. So we're trying to have that impact at every level in all spaces that we touch.
Thank you, Tasha. If I can come to you, Bryan, about the work that you're doing. You've mentioned that you've built a mental health app. How have you engaged? How have you worked with LGBTI communities? One, in building that application, and now with what's happening in the USA and around the world, especially in the rural parts, the most difficult parts. I know. Are you finding that people can't even download the app? What's going on there? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. And in full transparency, the app is still being developed. We're not in market at the moment, and I think a common thread we'll hear on today's discussion is this need for community and connection. I think that's really where You Flourish was stemmed from, and now we're seeing that it's really important to have everything be evidence-based that we're doing. We are not another clinical app, right? We're trying to create a space that people can have access to mental wellness quickly. And I think a big problem right now is this, like you said, not only is it people that are in rural areas and don't have access to the resources that we might have here in Denver or New York or Los Angeles, but it's also the wait time that's associated with, from the time that you want to do something about your mental health to the time you actually see a clinician. Those data points keep going up and up. So I think there's a real need for not only people that are in crisis, but just for people that want to better their lives, to have somewhere where they can go and take small but consistent actions to better their mental health. And I think we're really proud about the fact that You Flourish as a company was born from Envision You, and Envision You, as Brad said, is very strongly a believer, and everything needs to be evidence-based. We have a really important product feedback loop from our beta users, from the communities that we have engaged. Myself, I think that product feedback loop is not only important for, of course, acquisition and retention and UX and UI, but the impact itself, we're really careful about measuring, okay, let's make sure we are having individualized impact for the people that we're helping. So I think it's really important in today's age, especially for youth. There's such an over-dissemination of information, so making sure that people are aware of the resources that are available to them, I think, is the biggest challenge that everyone up here faces, is how do we actually let people know that, okay, here's an app that you can download, here's an app that, or a website, a place, anywhere that you can go and actually get the help that you need. So it's been an interesting challenge to answer that question. How do we get someone's attention for 30 seconds to let them know that it's okay to download something, or it's okay? And then you talk about all the stigma against, okay, is this something I can have open on my phone at school? Is this allowed to be downloaded? What is the connotation of having a queer mental wellness app on your phone and someone seeing that? I think all those things need to be worked on, but first we need to make sure that we're actually communicating the message effectively. I think that's the biggest challenge as a founder I'm facing currently.
No, thank you. I mean, as someone who's in this space and doing community work, and as a leader of, or seen as a leader, the well-being of our leaders is very important as well. I mean, especially right now. And it's concerning that all of this pushback is having on the mental health of not just our community members, but our leadership, and then on facing the additional challenges of actually accessing that support as well. Thank you. Alicia, I'm going to turn to you. If you could share with us what your organization is doing and how that you're working with LGBTI communities, and what are you seeing right now as well on the intersections of Indigenous persons and tribal and Native persons? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So first, I'm so thankful I was born Oglala, and my ancestors, they knew who they were, and they took care of each other, and we had our own way of living and being, where everyone mattered. We always say everyone in the circle matters, because we all took care of each other. We all had a role to take care of each other, and no matter if you identified as two-spirit or what in that circle, even a long time ago, you had a role, like Tasha said. And I always make point to mention that our tribe, along with a couple other tribes, are the only tribes to have defeated the United States government twice. And I say that in this context because by our ancestors fighting and defeating the United States government and maintaining who we are culturally, we're still able to practice that in our new government form, right, which is the Oglala Sioux tribe, where we can pass laws that protect our people. So that, I say that in this context to continue to fight to maintain the culture of who we are, because that will carry on in the spaces we go, right? It brings that sense of pride, and we know who we are, and we maintain that. And so we have been able to pass a number of legislations at the Oglala Sioux tribe, and we have legalized gay marriage. So if anything happens in the United States, you all can always come to Pine Ridge and you can get married. You never know. So I put that out there. We've also passed hate crime that includes LGBTQIA+, in our hate crimes in our jurisdiction. The state of South Dakota was trying to include that in their hate crimes, so we went and testified on, and said, we have this at home. We're trying to protect all our people. Y'all should too, because our people don't just stay on our reservation, right? Our members go off. They travel in other states, and so we want other states and other governments to protect all of our people everywhere too. So we do have those protections that we put in place in our jurisdiction for our tribal members and our people who are within our jurisdiction. We've also, we have youth interns in my office who are amazing. They give us so much insights, and they actually passed a resolution to have June be Pride Month on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. So we've got that passed 2 or 3 years ago, and ever since we've been having events in our community to celebrate Pride Month. So we're going to be having some events this month to celebrate Pride Month. So we have that within our community. Our community can come out and enjoy those together and celebrate our two-spirit relatives and just us as a community, because we maintain who we are, and we continue to make sure everyone knows everyone in the circle is important, and they all matter, and we all take care of each other in that way. So I just wanted to say that much, so thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. That's really empowering, especially with what Bryan was saying about creating communities and amongst all of this, the tribal, indigenous, and native communities and people of this land have created that and ensured the safety of their people as well, and it's welcoming for others as well, and that's so really important. Tasha, you wanted to add? Yeah,
I just wanted to add a little bit. Some of the things that we've done specific to youth is we did have a Woiton, that's Pride in Lakota, camp for youth. We set up a teepee. It was actually at our home, but we got funding. We set up a teepee. We talked to the younger LGBTQIA youth about what their roles were. We brought in an elder to talk to them about the special place they hold in our society and community. We fed them traditional foods. We brought in other organizations, and it was very grassroots, but it was amazing. And so that visibility that's happening for our young people, where, like Alicia said, they know that they matter, has, I think, had a ripple effect and creating community amongst them, because the reservation is large. She's 3 million acres, right? And so someone who lives on this side of the res may feel very secluded and isolated, but they got to come together and have community and know that they were there for one another. And so I think that's super important, and some really great work that's come out of her office.
That's really empowering. As a first generation myself, often linking it to our traditions and our cultures is often missing as a queer person as well. And the very fact that you've been able to do that and provide that and link it to the traditions of your tribes is so important. It brings that culture, it brings that ownership as well, and that you're part of this too. That's amazing. Thank you for that. I only wish that some of our community, my community, was something to learn from as well, how we can integrate that too. So I'm going to turn to you, Bryan, next, and I'm going to come back to you. In terms of, as you're an employer of LGBTIQ plus people and youth, in terms of, and this panel is about employment and leadership opportunities, so how are you as an employer creating that inclusive workplace? And I mean, I'm quite mindful as well. I come from an organization which employs LGBTIQ plus persons, and we face a lot of challenges when it comes to creating our own workplace that's inclusive. How are you doing that? And how can other employers learn from that too? And what opportunities need to be created for LGBTIQ plus people?
This is a really good question. I think in particular, in the tech space, it's very difficult to have diversity, right? There's a lack of people applying, which I think is where I tend to go for solving the issue, is how can I increase people's awareness of opportunities within this ecosystem, which everything's tech now, right? Like saying you work in tech just means you work. But in particular in the startup community, we're not seeing a lot of queer folk apply for roles. So it becomes a conversation of, okay, what can I do to make sure that the youth has the resources and knowledge and skill sets needed to just pragmatically do well at what they're doing at work. So I think from a leadership perspective, I really lean into, okay, what tool building and professional development opportunities can I give to people? What ways can I make sure that I as a person am mentoring queer youth and making sure that they know it's okay to pursue something that might not have a lot of other representation in that community, right? And I think it's really important too to recognize that it's difficult for queer founders to get funding within the tech space. So it's the numbers are so low. It's less than 1% of VC capital goes to queer funded or queer founded companies. So it also becomes a problem of, okay, well, if I can't get funding because I'm queer, then how am I going to employ people that are also queer? And I think, again, I lean into, okay, let's really focus on the outputs of work. Let's let the work speak for itself and then empower people to have those skill sets so they don't really have to then deal with the conversation. It becomes a moot point. So that's generally the perspective I take, and I know we as an organization strive to make sure we, of course, are hiring not only the best person for the role, but have no bias in that choice as well. So I think I also make note to the best person for the job is the best person for the job, and I want everyone that I know to know that when I hire them, it's for that reason. So I think leaning into the actual professional development skill set is a really, I know, pragmatic way to look at it, but I think it's effective as well.
Thank you. No, that's really very, very useful. And it's very interesting that the fact that you don't get the funding, you have to do the work and then get the funding. And often in our communities, that is the case. We have to prove ourselves first that we are worthy, and then we have to get that respect as well, and get those opportunities. Tasha, can I come to you next with that question as well? I mean, how can we create inclusive workplaces? And how can we provide LGBTIQ plus people with opportunities? And does it always start in the workplace? Because I think you've got examples of, you just talked about your daughter. Does it really start at the workplace, or does it start at home as well?
Right. I think anything that we're trying to change, it starts much earlier, right? Part of that, to me, is empowering young people at a very young age to have the freedom to dream. So we can look at all of the dismal statistics that exist right now and the potentialities of lack of funding and all of that. But if we instill in our young people that they are worthy, that just as they are, that they can dream, they can become, I think those are the things they're going to carry with them through life that are going to offset some of this negative energy from the world that is sure to come. I mean, life is hard. We all know that, right? But what are we doing to instill those values in our youth so that they can dream that one day I can be a CEO, one day I can change the funding system so that we're getting more funding into our communities to highlight our brilliance. And then the other piece I would definitely agree is mentoring, not just because I work for a mentoring organization, but because I have had some really great mentors and I always try to mentor others. I think that connection is extremely important to have someone as counsel, because things, again, will get hard, and to celebrate your successes as well, to connect you with potential opportunities. I'm probably an over-connector. Sometimes people have to tell me, stop emailing me opportunities, including her. But I really like to see, this would be perfect for you, this would be perfect for you. So I think the mentorship is key. And then the modeling as well, just to sit on this panel. Maybe there are young people in the audience or watching online that will see this and see this group of very diverse people doing very different but equally amazing things, that they can visualize themselves in that capacity in some way. And so I think those are the things. There may not be tangible, like we have to hire this many people by this date and we need to get them in this school, but I think all of that is the foundation upon which we build a better future and an empowered LGBTQIA community.
Thank you very much, Tasha. I'm going to come to you, Bryan. So, your organization, how are you championing inclusive workplaces within your organization and also externally showing the way about how other employers can make their workplaces inclusive and what needs to be done?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been thinking about a lot and is, and I'm sure many of the people in this room have heard about this, but we live in a country that is built on a lot of really problematic principles. And our workplaces, they often adhere to those as well. And so when we think about what it means to be inclusive for queer people, we also have to think about what it is to be inclusive to Black people, what it means to be inclusive to people with disabilities, what it means to be inclusive to folks who are neurodivergent. And none of that happens immediately, but we have a lot of systemic oppression to unpack and dismantle for our workplaces, even for those that are founded by people with other oppressed identities, to really make those places safe and inclusive for everyone. It's really easy to throw up a rainbow flag in June, and it's a lot harder to make sure that what you're doing organizationally is actually supporting the full authenticity and mental health and physical health and community spirit of folks who do not share the same identities as perhaps the folks that are in leadership. What it means to create opportunities for folks, and I think that some of what Tasha and Alicia and Bryan have said is so true here, is that we have to start earlier and start things in the workplace as well. So how are we building pathways for folks who don't have traditional access to capital? How are we giving folks opportunities that don't require them to leave the workplace and accumulate debt that folks can't afford because we have professionalized industries in such a way that it just maintains the whiteness, the cisness, the maleness of what our industries already are. And that is a lot of systemic work that individual organizations can't solve. What individual organizations can do is make sure that we're creating cultures that do not continue to be toxic to all people that come into them, and understanding that folks with oppressed identities are going to experience challenges, mental health challenges. That's what we focus on. So that's what's top of mind for me. And what does it mean to be building safeguards for that into your culture? What does it mean to value a person's mental health, and it's not just something that they're dealing with outside of the workplace and they have to leave it there? And that comes with all parts of our identity. When things happen out in the world, when evil or harmful things occur, are we creating spaces for folks to process that in the workplace? Are we creating environments that people can go to their manager and their supervisor and talk about, this is the grief that I'm feeling. This is how I'm showing up today. I am finding it difficult to get through the 3,000 things on my to-do list because my community is suffering today. And I think we don't have nearly enough humanity in the workplace, and I think that we have to latch onto that, and not just what we think humanity is as a person, because we all have our own biases and privileges that we carry, but asking our people, what does it mean to show up as a human, a fully actualized, fully realized human in the workplace to you, and how can we as a workplace, as an organization, support that? Because otherwise it's just a place to come and work and most likely be harmed in the process.
Thank you. Wow. While listening to you, it also reminded me, we have Kevin in the room as well now. Last year, the International Labour Organization adopted a resolution which confirmed that occupational safety health was the 5th fundamental right at work. So regardless of which, national laws must be compliant. And I think this is something that all governments must start working on, ensuring that there's legislation and policies in place when they're working on occupational safety and health that include mental health, that address mental health issues, especially for LGBTIQ plus persons, and make it easier provide solutions for small to medium-sized businesses. Because if you're a big business, you can do this. You can provide those solutions. But if you're a small business with 5 or 10 people, how are you going to have those resources, right?
Well, and the big businesses are not doing it, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, I think one of the things, we had a little bit of hope at some point when like organizations like Salesforce were like, you know, kind of like saying, we're not going to do business here because of how you are harming queer people, trans people, non-binary people. And it actually made an impact, and businesses, generally speaking, have been largely silent over the past couple of years as a lot of these legislations have passed. And where I think one of the questions that we all have to ask ourselves, but I think particularly for people and organizations that hold a lot of power, hold a lot of privilege, and have a lot of money, is what are you trying to protect? And what do you sacrifice if you are not protecting your people, when you're not protecting your values, and you're not protecting everyone in your community? Because what we're seeing right now, backlash, there's a whole lot of it happening from a governmental standpoint, but there's also a lot of it happening from an individual standpoint, and there are choices that are being made governmentally, in industries, that are acquiescing to a few very loud people who are saying, this is what I believe, and therefore this is what should happen, and without a lot of counter-organization to sort of like to get in the way of that, to dismantle it, the world is continuing to shift in that way. And so we need co-conspirators. We need folks who are going to use their platforms, and there are plenty of them out there, to say, this is not right. And yes, I know that some people in this organization or some people in our community are not going to feel great about that, but what are you trying to protect?
Thank you. Alicia, can you tell us a bit more about what you're doing and how employers can make workplaces more inclusive, and how as an organization you're also making your workplaces inclusive for LGBTIQ plus youth?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, it takes all of us, right? Everyone in the circle matters. And so we have some amazing people in our community who are advocates. So for those bills I mentioned earlier, the marriage, legalizing gay marriage, and also including Two-Spirit in our hate crime, we have some amazing advocates in our community, Mousseau and her wife, Philippa de Leon Mousseau, who advocated for those, right? So it takes all of us, right, to bring those things forward to our legislative bodies to say, hey, we want these in place to protect us and our communities. And I mentioned our ancestors earlier, right? Our ancestors have fought, all of our ancestors have fought to get us here today. And we don't even think, we always remember them, but we also remember our future, right? For us in tribal communities, we always think 7 generations ahead. With, you know, the seeds that we'll plant that we won't sit under the shade of, but our future generations will. And what do we want them to be sitting, what do we want them to have? Because there's been a lot of change. And I'm very, very, like, I know you mentioned the bills that, have been passed, but also there's a lot more openness, right? And I'm really excited, like Tasha mentioned, our daughter, we can have candid conversations with her. She can have candid conversations with her friends at school, right? Back when we were in high school, I don't know if that was, right. So I'm very excited for how we've, how far we've come, and excited for how far we're gonna go. And it takes those people like Muffy and Philippa, and also we have a group at home called, it's a grant, Native Connections, and we have some great leaders in there of Darren, Janice, and Philippa, Miss Rodriguez, right? So there's people in our communities who are doing these movements and actions, and working with our youth and working with our, government in different places. And like I said, it just takes all of us to do every little part, because not one organization can do all of it. We all have to, take our roles and responsibilities to make sure we're taking care of each other. And I'm really thankful in our community we have those people who are doing those things. And I mentioned a few, but there's a lot more, right? But I definitely wanted to mention them because they are an important fabric in our community, and we have those in all of our communities. So always recognizing, the people in our community who are trying to take care of all of us, and we're all trying to do it together. So
Thank you. So just to summarize, it starts at home. It starts in our communities, whether it's one part of a community. I mean, you could even say we're a community right now because we would gather. In my language, we have a word that says sangat, and you keep community together right now. So communities exist in different forms as well. So that's important. And then it's also important how small to big, medium-sized businesses show up and how that shows up in government spaces as well. So it is challenging. This future does look hard. We have struggles ahead of us, but at the same time, I like what you said. It's making these conversations come up and come out, and that's important because before we weren't even having them, and this is part of that. I mean, it's the same issues that the LBQ movement or the in particular, the gay rights movement have faced back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and now we're facing it again. It's just another part of our communities are under attack. So what can we do forward? And what can be done by us, but what can be done by employers and schools and different members of our community, government, etc. Perhaps, Bryan, you want to take us, and then we'll come back.
Sure. I was thinking about that as we're having the conversation. I think for myself, and especially youth, it's helpful to take a step back and have a macro view, right? Like, we have made progress. Things are better than they were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I like to still distill hope in the youth that things are changing for the better. We just need to keep fighting, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, especially now, there's a hyper focus on negative information, especially youth. And like I was talking about earlier, there's over dissemination of information. So I still like to give people a way to actually make change. And I think on the employer side, the most important thing is to remember that we don't need to be operating from a place of fear. I was having a conversation 2 days ago with someone about this, and I think many times members of the queer community get fearful that there's not more room at the top for people than just 1 or 2 or 3 in the loudest voices. So I think it's important to remember, we can be equitable also within our own community. There doesn't have to be one, queer startup founder. There doesn't have to be one of anything. And I think if we can take that mindset and take it into the workplace and just say, hey, there's room for everyone to thrive. And the scarcity idea, which is driven by fear, of course, I think eliminating that can help. And there's, of course, governmental and NGO and private ways we can do that and regulations. But I think really focusing on the backyard philosophy of just help whoever is right in front of you and just let that ripple effect happen naturally and organically, because like I said, systematic change takes time, but helping your neighbor does not. You can do that tomorrow, you can do that today, and I think that's where employers should focus, especially on the SMB side. That's where I live. The beautiful thing about startups and SMBs is you don't have the resources, right, and the funding to do some of these protections and securities, but you do have the ability to move quickly and make impact. Mm-hmm. So I think you lean into the idea that you don't have all this bureaucracy or regulations around you to make changes and to pivot and to just quickly go in the other direction. And I think that's a mindset I try to keep as I'm building organizations and companies, is that it's a luxury to be able to move quick and make change. So lean into that. So, yeah.
One thing that you did mention, and I know we're running out of time, so if we can ask for a couple of more minutes, if that's okay. Oh, 1 or 2 minutes, okay. I want the idea of breaking the glass ceiling. Now we know in our communities we have a pink ceiling, and some of us have crossed it through, especially if you're gay, white, cis, you've crossed over. How can members of our community lend down and help up others to go across the pink ceiling?
I think, and reiterating what I said before, is not operate from a place of fear, that there's more space for people at the top. And I think I love what you said about just being a one-on-one mentor for people and finding people that you can actually have real change in their lives and focusing on just being an example of mentoring youth and taking an active role in your mentee's relationship. And I think it's really important.
Thank you.
I know we're
All right, we've got literally 1 minute. So Alicia, I'm going to pass it to you. Can you give one phrase of what can be done very, very quickly as a sort of closing wrap up?
What can be done?
Yeah.
I say include everyone at every space, right? Like we've seen a lot of legislation this year about children, about trans children specifically, but nobody's asking them, right? Nobody's bringing them into the conversation. We're thinking that we're protecting them, operating out of a place of fear. But yeah, we need to stop operating out of a place of fear and actually ask those youth what they want and what they need, rather than doing what we think is best for them. I think that's what we do a lot, is we try to do what's best for people without asking them. So we just need to ask people what they want.
Okay. Can I just 2 more wrap up and then we wrap up? Okay. Just very, very quickly, 30 seconds and then 30. Yeah, very quickly. Sorry.
Sure. So I think ultimately, raised very traditionally in our tribal values, it comes down to the concept of mitaku ye oyasin, which Alicia alluded to. It means we're all related, and to be good relatives, again, as they mentioned, at every level. If we keep that in our heart and at our mind, we will have positive outcomes for all of our youth.
Thank you very much, Tasha. Brad, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would there are 1,000 different things that we could say, but really just like speak out. You have, anyone in this room has some power, some privilege, some platform. Use it to advocate for folks who are different from you and to tell your story, because your story matters. Your story is reflected in other people who need to see you thriving in your space. And our world will be a much better place if everyone is able to tell their story, even if they need an ally to help do it.
Thank you very much. So we're running out of time. I would like to thank you for all your participation. If you could give a round of applause, wave of hands, click of fingers for our panel, Tasha, Alicia, Bryan, Brad. Thank you very much. Thank you, GlobalMindED.
Thank you, Gurchaten. And you